Moving on from question 3 of LSAT Logical Reasoning drill set number 5 over at lawhub.lsac.org, we move on to one of the most time-consuming on average question tasks that you'll find in the logical reasoning section. But we can already identify just from the size of the answer choices, and that's going to be a parallel reasoning task. So we're going to keep our highlight tool ready so we can highlight that task beginning at the question stem of number 4. The argument above is most similar in its flawed reasoning to which one of the following arguments. So we know we're going to have to find a flawed argument in whatever's on the left-hand side, and then we're going to be able to eliminate answer choices that are valid arguments just based on the way that the question is structured. So moving over to the left-hand side, we can see our argument, and it reads, cars with automatic transmissions are typically more expensive than cars with manual transmissions, and cars with air conditioning tend to be more expensive than cars without air conditioning. Thus, since Sasha's car has an automatic transmission, it probably has air conditioning and must have been expensive. So we're going to highlight only the conclusion to start. So this idea, Sasha's car probably has air conditioning and must have been expensive. And the reason is because it has an automatic transmission. And you may be thinking to yourself, this seems kind of like conditional logic. And I would agree, but we do recognize, hopefully, that in the digital LSAT era, working through conditional statements in your scratch paper is generally not going to be all that efficient. So let's just highlight the statements of fact that are ultimately our conditions in different colors so that we can track them, hopefully, through the process of elimination. So we start with this idea that cars with manual transmissions are typically more expensive than cars with automatic transmissions are typically more expensive than cars with manual transmissions. And then we'll highlight the second statement that cars with air conditioning tend to be more expensive than cars without air conditioning. Okay, so we've got two different statements about what makes a car more expensive, but we can't link those things. It says that Sasha's car has an automatic transmission, and that means that it's probably more expensive than one with a manual transmission. But we can't link that to the air conditioning whatsoever, because just because both are more expensive doesn't mean that the two are linked. So there's that logical flaw that it doesn't have to have air conditioning, and must have been expensive goes too far as well. There are a lot of flaws in this argument. And remember, as we're working through the answer choices, we just need to find one piece that doesn't match as a reason to eliminate. And that's how you can go more expeditiously through this type of question. Thank you for watching this question explanation video from LSAT drill number 5 over at lawhub.lsac.org. If you enjoyed the tips that it contained, please consider liking the video or subscribing to the channel to be notified when additional question explanation videos are produced by my guru. Also, check out the description below for links to additional resources from my guru, including links to full sets of video explanations for entire LSAT prep tests from LawHub. But for now, let's get back to this question explanation. Starting with choice A, inorganic chemicals are usually less complex than organic chemicals. Okay, and chemicals with low molecular weights are generally less complex than chemicals with high molecular weights. Okay, so we've got two things that are being compared in the exact same way as less complex than organic chemicals and less complex than chemicals with high molecular weights. So these are at least doing that more and less comparison that's given in the evidence on the left-hand side. Thus, since the chemical being analyzed has a low molecular weight, it is probably inorganic and must not be complex. All I'm going to focus on really right now is that the probably and must, they match our structure in the conclusion exactly. So I'm going to just hold A right now because I'm going, that's the exact pairing that we need from our qualifiers, and it might be more easily accomplished to eliminate the rest for not matching that structure. So as a rule, hamsters are larger than gerbils and have larger litters than gerbils. Okay, so hamsters are larger than gerbils and have larger litter than gerbils. Well, we've just got one kind of structure here. Okay, so that's fine. But since Bert's pet is a hamster, it is probably larger than a gerbil and must have been part of a large litter. Well, Yeah, this is a valid argument. We don't want a valid argument. So as soon as we recognize that B is valid, we can eliminate it and move on to C, D, and E. Next, on average, savings accounts offer higher interest rates than checking accounts, and accounts at credit unions offer higher interest rates than accounts at banks. Okay, so we've got savings accounts offer higher interest rates than checking accounts, and accounts at credit unions offer higher interest rates than accounts at banks. Simple enough. Since CC's account offers a high interest rate, okay, so it's a high interest rate, it is probably at a credit union, so credit unions offer a higher interest rate, probably, yep, and must be a savings account. Well, we've got savings account offer higher interest rates than checking accounts always, so that seems to be a valid argument again. So this is not going to be flawed in the way that we needed our flaw to match what we had happening with Sasha's car, so we can eliminate C for that reason. Then choice D, bowlers typically have greater arm strength than golfers, and people who lift weights usually have greater arm strength than marathon runners. Okay, so the typically and the usually match the structure in yellow. So far so good. Thus, since Deborah is a bowler, she probably also lifts weights and has greater arm strength than most marathon runners. Well, this probably here applies to both pieces, and we need probably and a must. So as soon as we find that distinction for choice D, we can eliminate it as not being the same flaw. And lastly, choice E, movies with well-known actors are usually more popular than movies without them. Okay, movies with happy endings tend to be more popular than movies with unhappy endings. Okay, thus, since tonight's movie has well known actors, it will probably end happily and be more popular than a movie that ends unhappily. Well, again, this is a valid argument. Also, we don't have that must that we needed in our original argument. So, coming back up to choice A, understanding that it is the right answer, let's see how everything matches. Well, we know that it says inorganic chemicals are usually less complex than organic chemicals. So that's our first statement of fact. And then we will switch to our pink here, and it says, and chemicals with low molecular weights are generally less complex than chemicals with high molecular weights. So we've got those two distinctions. And then our orange, we've got, since the chemical being analyzed has a low molecular weight, our full conclusion is that the chemical being analyzed is probably inorganic and must not be complex. Well, we know it has a low molecular weight, and so that means it's less complex theoretically. But so that is correct. It's not going to be complex, but it's not must. It's probably not a must, right? And then we know the chemical being analyzed has a low molecular weight. It's probably inorganic. Well, no, not necessarily. We just had these two things that both led to being less complex, not that the inorganic nature and the low molecular weight and complexity were tied together. So that's how you could break it down fully. Hopefully, you don't do that, however, on the actual exam because it's relatively time consuming. And these certainly are one of the most time consuming types of questions that you could find on the entire LSAT in its current form.